today by a very, very special guest. Kind of to go through a little bit about him before we jump in. He's a career 280 hitter for the Gamecocks from 1999 to 2002. 280 hitter, hit 33 home runs, 154 RBIs. Was also a first-team All-SEC designated hitter in 2002. Had a very, very memorable home run against the Clemson Tigers in Omaha in 2002 that I'm sure Gamecock fans haven't quite forgotten about yet. Also was formerly doing color commentary for SEC Network Plus for all South Carolina baseball games. And like I said, someone that I think is pretty well known amongst Gamecock fans everywhere, has made multiple appearances on different outlets such as 107.5 The Game, and is definitely around Columbia as well. So definitely want to welcome Trey Dyson to the show. Trey, it's great to finally have you on, and appreciate you taking the time to come on the show today.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to jump right in because, the last thing I talked about was, the color commentary stuff with SEC Network Plus. Anybody that's been following along, at least this early in the season with South Carolina baseball, knows that there was a switch up there. You had talked about a little bit on your own personal Twitter account. The State had an article about it. I just want to kind of get your take on it. You don't have to go into too much detail if you don't want to, but just kind of how you found out, what your reactions to everything were, and just kind of, just tell us what sort of happened with that.
Well, I guess I could start with, a long time ago, the great Mike Morgan was our radio guy back when I was playing, and we kind of formed a good relationship back in the day. And whenever TV would come to town back in my playing days, I would love to get on the camera and fool around with the guys back then. It was like Fox Sports that would be the only ones that would broadcast our regular season games. And so I kind of took a liking to it then. And then Mike Morgan kind of helped me out in the very beginning, along with Tommy Moody. He used to let me get on some radio type broadcasts back in the day before everything, with technology got so good. And so I messed around with it a little bit here and there. And even when I was playing pro ball, I played pro ball from after 2002. I went straight from the College World Series out to Spokane, Washington, and played professional baseball for about 3.5, 4 years. But even during that, before spring training and stuff, I'd get on the radio and with Tommy and do some stuff, and then was able to do some games with Mike Morgan. And then throughout the years after I got done playing pro ball, South Carolina baseball would have about 6 or 7 games per year that would be on Fox Sports, and I was able to do those games on television. I got to work with Mike Morgan and Dave Neal and guys like that. And then whenever the SEC Plus thing came along, that was just kind of a natural fit to put me in there, since I'd been doing it, for a long time already. And obviously really enjoyed it. And when I found out this year I wasn't going to be doing it, I'd figured I was going to be doing them again. It was just kind of caught me off guard, and, certainly kind of hurt me a little bit. But that being said, I'm over it completely, and got no really ill feelings to anybody. Just moving forward. It probably should have been handled a little bit better. They probably should have reached out and called me a little bit sooner, but we all make mistakes, so it's all good.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Was it one of those things where, because I feel like now what happens a lot of times, at least in the sports world, it seems, I mean, you see like guys saying, I found out I was traded from Twitter, or somebody texted me. Was that something how you found out, or was it, I guess it doesn't sound like they really even reached out to you ahead of time or anything like that.
Well, I basically called and found out that they had decided to go into a different direction. So that's kind of how it went down. But like I said, it's not the end of the world. It's got a lot more time to do some other things, but I certainly, love doing the games and wish them nothing but the best from this point going forward, obviously.
Absolutely. And we enjoy, Birch and Kip Balknight, but definitely miss having you on the telecast. I will say, from a, just a Gamecock point of view, watching the games, we definitely miss having you on the telecast. So,
well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on, into kind of jumping backwards, if you will, to your playing career just for a little bit. Again, you played from 1999 to 2002, was on that 2002 team that went to Omaha, beat Clemson, similar to what happened in 2010. Just talk about kind of, because I feel like the teams you were on was sort of kind of the beginning of what has been South Carolina building a tradition of, the expectations that South Carolina has every year of, being winners. And, kind of, I think you guys really laid the foundation for the teams in 2010 and 2011 and then 12 as well, the national title teams. Talk about sort of what it was like, back then as far as playing under Coach Tanner, sort of being those first teams, I guess, to kind of, I think you're one of Coach Tanner's first teams at South Carolina, or at least one of the first couple. Just talk about what it was like kind of playing back then, sort of laying the foundation the way you guys have done.
Right. Well, South Carolina obviously has a very storied tradition going back a long time ago with Bobby Richardson. And but there was kind of a little lull there for a while, I guess, from the end of the 80s until Coach Tanner came in. And we, Coach Tanner, Coach Toman, those guys, they Coach Myers, they got a great group of guys together. And we were just a very close-knit team that were mixed up a lot of hometown guys, but also a lot of what Coach Toman would refer to as JUCO bandits. Those guys that might, that had some experience, really tough-nosed guys, and we just love to win. And Drew Meyer was a huge piece of that. Obviously, being the player that he was, and what we did so good, in my opinion, was we really practiced incredibly hard, and we were intense. Coach Tanner expected that, that when we step on that field, it's 100% effort all the time. When you step into the cage and you get ready to hit, you should already be warmed up. You shouldn't really be getting loose at that point. So everyone was going at 100% all the time, and we wanted to win more than anything else, and we loved it. We made fun of each other. We were just a close-knit group, and it was just a really awesome experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned Drew Meyer. I remember also Steve Bondurant was a huge part of those teams.
Yep.
Definitely some great players that played on those teams. You mentioned Coach Tanner. Talk about what Coach Tanner, meant to you as a player and then means to you now that you're kind of, not so much playing the game anymore. But what does he mean to you overall?
Well, Coach Tanner is obviously a very good leader. He was someone that you certainly feared when you played for him in a good type of way. I mean, he just expected, there was expectations that were laid out, and you were either, if you wanted to be a part of the program, you followed them. And if you didn't want to be a part of the program, or if you made a mistake or did something that he told us not to do, then he wasn't going to put up with much of that. So you knew what the expectations were, and you certainly had a great level of respect for him every time you were, around him. But then afterwards, it was like he was a completely different guy. As far as like, it was amazing because I remember the first time really after I got done playing with him, I just seeing him for the first time and just the love that he shared, you could tell he so much appreciated you. And it was like you were officially part of the family, where he doesn't have to give off that sternness anymore. And it was just a great feeling of relief for myself. And, he's really like that with everybody. And it was, we still have a good relationship to this day.
Absolutely. It's funny, we talked a little bit in pre-show, but we had Michael Roth on the show a couple weeks ago, and he sort of echoed the same thing you said about, how Coach Tanner could be, obviously fair, but really, really, really tough. And it was funny. He was saying that a lot of the older players would come up to them and just tell them, how
I heard that
they had it with Coach Tanner. Now, you think there's any truth to that? You think he softened up a little bit as the years went, or?
Big time. I remember coming out there like a couple of I was kind of a free spirit out there trying to keep things loose for everybody. And I certainly did some things that, in Coach Tanner's, I guess, whenever he first got into college baseball, some of the things that I would do would certainly not have flied with him. But, we did some stuff. He knew that having some fun was certainly part of our playing baseball. And we kind of pushed the limits a little bit. And, some might refer to it as like being Bush League. We weren't really Bush League. We were just having a great time. And he would never endorse a lot of the things that we did. But as long as we weren't being, intentionally disrespectful to the other team, then he let us kind of get fired up and have some fun. But a couple of years after I got out and I saw some of the things some of the guys were doing at practice, I was like, what happened to Coach Tanner? Like, none of this stuff would have flown. And anyways, they were having a great time out there. And obviously, when Michael Roth came, he was a great, guy to keep the team loose. And he got away with probably a lot more stuff than even I did. So he certainly loosened up. And Coach Tanner's got a great heart, and he wants to win. He wants to do it the right way, and he wants to do it in a respectful manner. But you can certainly have some fun while doing that.
Absolutely. So one thing, I want to ask you about that I actually talked to Roth about as well was, you guys are both sort of seen as, I guess, heroes in Omaha, obviously beating Clemson sort of the fashion you did. I guess I'll just simply ask, how much fun is it? Obviously being at the College World Series is something a very limited amount of people get to do, but how much fun is it to do what you did? Not only doing it in Omaha, but against your arch rival as well.
Well, it's the greatest experience a college player can have, and there's really not really a monetary value you can place on that. A lot of these kids who, more and more kids are coming to college because they see the value of doing that as opposed to going straight to pro ball, which is, I think, is a great thing. And you really can't place put a value on the experience of going to Omaha. It's the greatest experience. It's awesome. So much fun. And, going out there and having that opportunity to do it and play against Clemson just makes it all the better. And, when we were playing out there in the early 2000s, it was against Jack Leggett's Clemson squads, who were obviously very tough, very businesslike. And a lot of people kind of criticized Clemson. They had a great team, but a lot of their fans and stuff got kind of criticized Clemson for being, a little too uptight, when we were the complete opposite. And so, I don't think, Coach Monty Lee has got Clemson rolling in a great direction. They're playing loose. They're having a great time. But certainly one of our advantages out there, I believe, was how we were just fully embracing the experience, playing loose, understanding we really have nothing to lose, and just playing like the JUCO bandits that a lot of them were. But
absolutely.
I was going to say, one of the things after the Saturday game in the Carolina Clemson series this weekend, I heard some comments from Coach Lee, and it was just a great message to his team about they were doing so good, and then they lost the game, but about how to bounce back, and having joy coming to the ballpark every day, and having fun while you're out there and playing loose. I mean, baseball is a fun game, and it's meant to be played loose. It's a game of failure, so certainly guys can get tense. But if you have a good guy at the top of the ship that understands that, hey, we're playing out here, let's have fun, let's play hard, let's play loose, it certainly makes a difference in the overall level of play for a team.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, Monty Lee, and definitely, I mean, he's, someone all South Carolina fans are familiar with. And I think it's no surprise, at least in my opinion, what he's doing at Clemson. You talk about how important the man at the top is. I want to get into the series over the weekend with Clemson, but talk about kind of your impressions of Coach Mark Kingston, what you thought of him beforehand. Has anything changed? Has your opinion of him changed since he started, and kind of just what you think about the leadership at the top for the Gamecock side?
Well, I think Carolina's in great shape with Coach Kingston. The thing that I noticed about him first was his willingness to, kind of reach out, learn about the program's history, understanding the importance of former players in the past. And I thought that was great. But I also noticed that he wasn't kind of overwhelmed with the whole coming into the SEC type thing. He was kind of like, hey, I know I'm here to do a job. I'm not going to get distracted by, what people are saying about me, or if I was a good hire or not, or, how many fans are going to come to the games or anything like that. He just has a great disposition, and understands that if he implements the plan that he wants to implement, he's confident that will work. and he's not really worried about what other people might think about him. He's going for what he believes is best and why Coach Tanner hired him in the first place. And a lot of people, they can get to a bigger stage and kind of change who they are. Think they might have to coach a certain way, but I believe Coach Kingston has just completely stayed true to himself, and is coaching these guys the way that he coached throughout his career.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if you, obviously, as you have, if you listen to any of his comments in his post game, or if you just listen to him talk about baseball, it's just, evident he's a baseball guy. So I've been thoroughly impressed as well, and think Carolina's headed in the right direction in his leadership. Want to talk about the series over the weekend, though, with Clemson. Obviously, Gamecocks dropped 2-3 after winning the Friday night game. Want to dive into a couple things, but talk about just your overall takeaways, from the series.
Well, Clemson's a good team, and I guess I'm not surprised they won 2 out of 3. As a fan, obviously winning that first game, especially the way they did it, you want to try to get another one there to get the series, not only for yourselves, but as a player, kind of what's been going on with Clemson, kind of beating up on Carolina pretty much all over the place. You really want to take some pride there and do anything and everything possible to do something for the fans and for yourself. So that was certainly disappointing, but I think the South Carolina team is a better team than I thought they would be. They've struggled a little bit with the bats here over the past week or so, but we're certainly more talented pitching wise than I thought we would be, and the lineup has all the potential in the world to be a very good lineup during the SEC. So, disappointed we lost, but certainly think that we can have a successful year within the conference.
Yeah, agreed. I was going to say, I was actually there on Saturday, watched all 3 games, obviously, and was there on Saturday. I wanted to get to a little bit of what happened Friday, but first I kind of wanted to ask you, because I came away from Saturday with this thought is, I would, and you can disagree with me if you want, but I almost felt like there was a little bit of a lack of sense of urgency on Saturday. I mean, I'm not sure if that's the right word. I mean, I don't think anybody expected Cody Morris to kind of have the outing he had, but it sort of felt like to me just a little bit of a lack of sense of urgency where, yesterday obviously Sunday, was a winner take all game. I really thought South Carolina should have played it a little bit more aggressively Saturday, just because the last thing you want to do is lose Saturday and have to go win at their place.
Right. Well,
go ahead.
I mean, I would certainly agree with that, especially since you're playing with house money. You won the first game, and you got a guy in Cody Morris who throws the ball 95 miles an hour. You got to have some confidence going into that game, and it is a tough place to play. But I'm completely with you there, and hopefully,
I was just going to say, I thought they made it painfully evident. And again, I'm not, questioning any coaching decisions. I just thought they made it painfully evident they wanted to start Gilreath on Sunday, because in my opinion, being there, you could just see Cody didn't have it. I mean, it was amazing to me. I told somebody it was amazing through 3 innings. He's given up 1 run. I mean, I think at that point he had 6 walks or 5 walks or whatever.
Right.
And honestly, I think I probably would have pulled Cody after he walked the leadoff batter in the 4th inning, again, just knowing he didn't have it. And, they stuck with their guns and their game plan. I really think they wanted to start Gilreath Sunday again. I mean, if they didn't, I think that would have been the time to pitch him if you're going to pitch him in relief. But yeah, I mean, again, if Cody Morris has his stuff, it's, you're not even talking about it. But I just thought maybe there was a little bit of lack of sense of urgency, in the sense they were like, well, we've got one to give. We can still win the series if we lose today, where I thought the mindset should have been, you have to win today. Like, this is throw all the chips out. We need to win this game today and just end this thing now. So,
well, I understand what you're saying, but also when you have a guy like Cody Morris, you're gonna have to at some point this season battle through some adversity, and whether it be the Clemson game or the 4th series SEC series, when you throw that hard, you should always at least be able to bring your fastball with you to the park. And he obviously had some issues, but they didn't, like you said, they didn't really score a lot of runs. And this offense is Coach Kingston's very proud of his offense. You got to score some runs too. I mean, you got to knock the ball around and not be afraid to drive some pitches. I see Carolina, missing a lot of very hittable pitches that that they could have gotten to, and that Saturday game could have been a completely different game. I feel your frustration with Cody Morris, certainly, but they only gave up. What did they give up? 5 runs that second game.
5. Yeah. No, you're right, and I like Cody too. And I mean, I think it goes to show that the few runs he gave up goes to show how good his stuff is, that he can walk that many guys, and he continuously got out of jams. It was crazy. And like I said, to watch, and like I said, he's got the velo. I think he could arguably have the best stuff on the staff. Obviously competing with Adam Hill, but
right. Let's be right. Let's be fair to Adam Hill. Adam Hill is a bona fide big leaguer here in a couple years. I mean, he's filthy.
I was going to ask you what you kind of thought of that performance Friday, that 14 strikeout, back-to-back 14K games.
I mean, I guess the thing that I was more surprised about than anything was the emotion that Adam Hill showed. He's pretty much, for the most part, hasn't really showed that much emotion. But when he was striking out those guys and getting fired up, coming off the mound, I love to see that, because it tells me that this is more than just a regular game to him. And it's wanting to beat Clemson. And that's the type of attitude everyone's got to have. But he is filthy. I really think his changeup is a lot better this year. His fastball is tremendous. And he's pounding the zone. When he's on that mound, he knows that he's going to, he knows that he's the best player on the field. And it shows. Speaking of that, Madison said, I'm helping out at Blythewood High School, coaching baseball as a hitting instructor on the varsity team. And Madison Stokes' brother, Jansen Stokes, plays there. And Madison came and talked to us. And, one of the things that he told us was, why is we asked him, why do you think he's been so successful this year? And he said, because it's all confidence. And that when he steps into the batter's box, whether it be true or not, in his mind, he's the greatest hitter in college baseball. And that is evident when he gets into the box and you see the swings that he's taken. It's also evident to me when Adam Hill is cutting that ball loose that he has that same mindset as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I definitely want to talk a little hitting with you, because obviously you were a top college hitter yourself for Carolina. Want to talk about this lineup. Obviously, like you said, over the last week, they've been a little bit of a slump, I guess you could say. I thought the bats definitely woke up on Sunday, and which was definitely encouraging to watch. But the one guy I want to talk about from your perspective, a hitting perspective, a fellow lefty, is Carlos Cortez. What have you obviously he was bumped down to 8th in the lineup Sunday, which I think was a move they had to make. I mean, when you're 3 guys slumping as bad as he is, it makes it really hard on your team to score runs. I mean, what have you seen from watching him in the limited time you've gotten to watch him? What do you think's been his maybe his biggest problem at the plate? Is it that people have film on him from last year? Is it anything particularly he's doing? I mean, what are you seeing from him right now?
Honestly, I can't give a great critique on him because I haven't really studied his at-bats completely. But a lot of times when you're a guy like Carlos Cortez and you got the name out there, you've obviously heard of the sophomore slump before. Guys are certainly treating you a little bit differently. He sees a lot of off-speed pitches, and he has done some great things at the plate despite the batting average. But he's a guy who really gets his weight into his swing, meaning he really falls forward well, which creates a lot of kind of inertia to be able to get that bat moving for you. I don't know if really it's kind of like falling forward to really get that bat moving for you. And I don't know if you've ever heard of like linear versus rotational hitting. I was more of a rotational hitter, and everyone to some extent is a rotational hitter. Okay. But not everyone falls forward as good as other hitters. Carlos Cortez falls forward tremendously within his swing. But if he's not keeping his hands back and his upper half coiled, as he's making his fall forward, whether it be because he started late or started too soon, or whether it be a breaking ball, change up, curve ball, and his hands kind of leak forward a little bit, it's going to certainly cause some issues for you. So if I was Carlos Cortez, I would just really work on, doing what I'm doing, doing what has made me a great hitter, which is, the way I use my entire body with the swing, but just making sure I train myself as much as I can to keep my hands back, on off speed and changeups. It's easier said than done, but I've seen him do it multiple times. And once he can get back into that good feeling of being able to keep his hands back, maybe recognize the pitch a little bit earlier, even sitting on certain off speed pitches from time to time, I think he'll start popping off here pretty soon.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say it's pretty funny because last year he really didn't do anything in non-conference last year either, and he hit conference play, and all of a sudden it was just the switch turned on. I don't know if maybe he's just an SEC type hitter or what the deal is, but maybe he's saving it for SEC play. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's a tremendous hitter. One of the things also too that might not be a bad idea to consider is to pop him up into the leadoff hole. It's not like we've really had a great leadoff hitter. I mean, Noah Campbell to me is one of my favorite players. I love watching him play. I think he's going to do great. But a lot of times when you have a hitter like Carlos Cortez, you throw him in the leadoff hole, all of a sudden he keeps coming up and he's not having to think before he gets up to the plate for that first at bat. He just gets in there and he's hacking right away. Typically, you're going to get better pitches and more fastballs. I think that could certainly be an idea for Coach Kingston to look into. It would be untraditional, but that's the type of stuff I'm thinking about.
I agree with you. Excuse me. I think he's just the kind of guy that needs to, find a way to get a couple hits. And I think once he gets them, they're going to kind of fall, come in bunches, obviously. So just find a way to get him a couple knocks and,
exactly.
let the rest just kind of happen. So last question, I'm going to get you out of here, Trey. Overall, obviously, this team starts conference play in a little bit over a week with the Florida Gators, who's the number one team in the country. We're 12 games into this point. What do you need to see from this team, or what do you think this team maybe needs to work on the most before it obviously starts in the SEC play, with the Florida Gators in a week and a half?
Well, I see them, like I said earlier, they're missing too many pitches that they should be driving right now. And I really think a lot of it has to do with, really trying to stay in the middle of the field with their approach, which is obviously a great approach. That's what you want to do. But you don't want to cut yourself off from being able to get to that middle end pitch. I see a lot of the right-handed batters kind of cutting themselves off with their lower half, where instead of driving that fastball middle or middle in, they're usually taking it because they feel like they can't get to it, or they're either fouling it off. And when you're facing pitchers, especially the caliber of Florida, you might only get one hittable pitch per at bat. You better be ready to hit it. And, that's what I see. Maybe just trying to be a little bit too perfect at the plate, with, going up the middle the other way. It's okay to take a gangster hack every now and then and open up your front, your lower half, as long as your upper half is back, opening that lower half could be a pretty good idea to kind of cheat and help their hips get moving a little bit so that they don't foul off or take that middle end pitch, but they drive it instead.
Absolutely. And
I'll
go ahead.
Chris, when you watch the games, watch how many times that they take that middle end pitch, especially the right-handed batters, where they're either fouling it off or taking it. And to me, it's a simple thing. All you got to do is kind of look at their lower half, and it kind of tells you what they're trying to do as far as driving the ball back up the middle. To me, they're doing that a little too much and not being able to hammer that ball, that if you go out and watch them take batting practice, the pitch that they're taking in the game is the same pitch that they're crushing out to left center during batting practice.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I was going to say, from a pitching perspective, the one thing I'm looking for before they get into conference play with Florida is sort of what happens with the weekend rotation. I mean, I know they started Gilreath on Sunday and it was a toss-up. I definitely think Gilreath earned another start. I'm not sure if you got to watch that entire game. I thought Gilreath threw the ball really well. I thought he was snake bitten by some, a couple of blue pits and some weak ground balls. And I think he kind of uncharacteristically, fell behind in the count a little more than he had in his first 2 appearances. But I mean, he's 17 years old starting at Clemson. I try to tell people, like, you don't understand how crazy that is. He should be in high school, and he's out here, starting against one of the best college baseball teams in the country at their place. So, I mean, I'm very intrigued to see just kind of what they do with that weekend rotation. Do they stick with Gilreath? Do they kind of, let it play out again? But I think they've got to figure out in a hurry, because, I mean, the last thing you want happening going into conference play is not knowing who your Sunday guy is, for example. So I'm really intrigued to see how they play that.
Well, I certainly, I think we could both agree the kid has a lot of talent, and will do some great things for South Carolina. The thing I like about the staff is they do have a lot of good arms where anyone could step up at any different time. So honestly, I mean, I was really concerned about the pitching going into the season, but I feel a lot more confident after I've seen the way they throw the ball. And Clemson's a great team. They took it to us a little bit, but I'm feeling good. But our offense, they got to produce. They have the players to do it, and it's just a matter of them producing. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm really hoping that Sunday is sort of a catapult into these next midweek games and then this weekend series. Because like I said, from the 5th inning on, that looked like the team that we saw in the first, week and a half of the season or so, just driving baseballs of the gap, kind of staying within themselves. So I'm hoping that's going to translate over, but, we'll have to definitely see. And, obviously when Florida comes to town, it's a huge series. So that'll be a ton of fun for sure.
It's going to be tough. The entire SEC season is going to be tough. There's a bunch of great arms, but they have the talent. They just they got to be ready to hit that pitch. When you can get a lead on somebody and create that pressure, especially in the SEC, you got to get out early. You got to get out early and often, and you got to score those runs, early to kind of get it rolling for you.
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, perfect. Well, hey, Trey, we're going to let you go. We'd definitely love to have you back on the show, obviously, talk some more Gamecock baseball. Let everybody know, kind of where they can find you on social media if they want to follow along. I think you're pretty active during the season as far as, breaking down the games and breaking down the Gamecocks in general.
Yeah, I'm at Trey Dyson on Twitter. And then on Thursdays, I'm on at 107.5 with Tim Hill and Bill Gunter with Brian Jeffcoat. We work together at Jeffcoat and Jeffcoat Insurance. And we go on and kind of talk about the game a little bit. And that is from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock on Thursdays.
Okay.
Other than that, I'm around town, having a good time with the local community, and I'm out at Blythewood High School, loving every minute of that whenever I get out there and just having a blast.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, Trey, again, I mean, I would love to have you back on the show,
Anytime.
Whenever, maybe a couple weeks, just to, talk some baseball. Again, I'm Chris Phillips. You can find me at CPhilly19. Obviously, find us at Armchair SCAR on Twitter, Armchair S Carolina on Instagram, Armchair South Carolina on Facebook, and of course, ArmchairAmericans.com. Again, be sure to rate, subscribe, share, and download the podcast. Check us out. We've got a ton of guests coming in as well. Trey coming back on the show, hopefully, and a lot of exciting stuff happening in Armchair South Carolina. So, again, Trey, appreciate you taking your time. We'll definitely be following along. We'll definitely be breaking everything down with, as far as the baseball season goes, and we will be in touch soon. So for Trey Dyson, I'm Chris Phillips. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on the next episode of the Spurs Up Show.